Good afternoon and welcome to City Council meeting for Tuesday, May 16th. Thank you for your patience. You're running just a little behind there. First of all, Mr. Clerk, if we could start off with a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Campbell?
Present.
Councillor Carlson?
Present.
Councillor Croson?
Present.
Councillor Dodick?
Present.
Councillor Palladino is away. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel?
Here.
Acting Mayor Parker?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope?
Present.
Mayor Higgin?
Present.
Quorum established, 8 members present.
Thank you. City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we're gathered on the land of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We'll now move on to recognitions, and I'll start to my far left, Councillor Dodick and Councillor Campbell.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention that on the weekend was the 47th annual Arts Alive and Well in the schools at Southern Alberta Art Gallery. I've been to many of these, and it's just always amazing. In the gallery, there'll be exhibits from the grade 9s to 12 on display, and then online from K to 7 or K to 8. Just really phenomenal, and they're on display right now, and I urge everyone to take part and see the exhibit. Also, a great event that I was fortunate enough to be at the Elks Picnic Compound on the weekend. It was Rita's Run, about 300 runners down there. They were all running. It was a fun run, and proceeds were going to mental health. Congratulations to Sandra Asachuk, who put it all together. It really was quite phenomenal. It's nice to see a lot of smiles and just a beautiful, gorgeous day on Saturday. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We all got a tour of our organics processing facility last week. It was pretty amazing to see. I just want a big bouquet to the staff for hosting us and getting that facility open. But I'm more excited that today was my first pickup and my bin was already overflowing. As someone in debate who said he'd never use it, I want to say I'm using it, and it's quite lovely. So big shout out to that. Also, I want to shout out to the CASA on their 10th anniversary. I was away on the weekend, but I saw all the photos of all my colleagues there. Thank you for all being there and celebrating with CASA. I just can't believe it's been 10 years. And if I can, Your Worship, I know that we've had some questions. We're seeing some of the very minimal effects of the forest fires up north, or north of us at least. Here in Alberta, I know that the city manager sent out some information to council on how we are trying to assist and participate. I wonder if there's maybe an update we can give to the community to say how we're helping, or if the mayor was going to do. Oh, if you're going to do that on yours, I will just wait. But so I'll get it.
No problem. Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. Today, I would like to offer congratulations to our very own Ryan Westerson, who was recently appointed chair of the Alberta Municipal Clerks Association. So congratulations for that, Ryan.
Awesome. And that's it. Okay, well, move over to my far right, Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope. Nothing, you sure? I can give you more time. You're good. All right. Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. I just want to give a shout out to the Janes Walks that were held last weekend. Thank you to those who led the walks, or 2 weekends ago, and those who participated. We also were fortunate last weekend to host the University of Calgary Graduate College. They were down for the weekend doing activities here, and they partnered with the University of Lethbridge and worked with their grad students as well. I had a chance to meet some of these grad students. Brilliant young people doing some incredible work, and just a little, they bribed me with a beautiful mug as well, so I just have to share my nice new mug. University of Lethbridge, I don't have one of yours yet. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mayor Higgin.
Thank you, Councillor Croson. Acting Mayor Parker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I had the privilege working with yourself and serving the wonderful people of Norbridge this past Friday for the Mother's Day annual bruncheon, and I'm glad that we got to serve one of our colleagues as well. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, it's nice to have you there. But for all the volunteers and all the people that make that a huge success, there's a lot of people that don't have families to spend time with mothers, and so I'm glad Norbridge put that on, as well as LSCO. They put their annual Mother's Day brunch together on Sunday, and it was a huge success, so congratulations to all those people as well. To Mr. Sanchez, thank you very much to all your crew for all the work they did in regards to potholes. I know potholes was talked about a lot, and as we drive around the city, we can see that they're almost all completely repaired, if not close, and it's just great to see, and I want to extend a thank you on behalf of the community for that.
Thank you. As many of you are aware, outside, I didn't know what was happening here. We got a shift in winds, and it's pretty smoky out there, and it's obviously due to the fires that are burning central and northern Alberta. And last week, several City of Lethbridge staff, including our emergency planning and risk manager, Mr. Palmer, who's in the audience here now, along with Chief Adair, thank you for being here. Part of this provincial response team sent to assist with efforts to Drayton Valley. A team of 4 firefighters from Lethbridge was then deployed to help battle the Buck Creek fire, with a second crew of 4 firefighters replacing them last weekend. So through coordination with Alberta Health Services, Lethbridge also recently took in 50 evacuees who were part of an assisted living facility and have been connected to similar sites here. So kudos to all of those that have helped with these efforts, and I applaud each and every one of you. Thank you very much. Also, I just wanted to say this week, the week of May 22nd to 28th was recently declared Community Disability Service Workers Week by the Alberta Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services. In our area, 21 local member organizations make up the South Region Council of Disability Services, known as SRCDS. Those members work collaboratively and cooperatively in the best interest of the people they provide services to, their collective workforce, their organizations, and their communities. I'd like to recognize SRCDS for the essential, valuable, and important work that they do. We appreciate your tireless efforts to make life better for so many people within our community. So thank you for that. And just in closing here, thank you for Rita's run, the Run for Mental Health. What a great run that was. It's now an annual event, which is great. Fantastic number of folks that were participating in that, so thank you for that. As well as the weekend, there was bopping between many different things. There was a sausage fest that was over on the south side here with many different businesses and an event, for family event to get out, face painting and a bunch of different events that happened there, as well as a green and yellow bicycle barbecue. So there's many children throughout the community that were given bikes that were donated from many different organizations within the community, and I think there was up to 60 different bikes that were given away, and there's more coming in for that. So great to have a community event and those that are involved with that. Next we'll move on with the adoption of the agenda. And I do have a resolution. Actually, first, I'm sorry, I would like to mention we've got an encampment strategy presentation is coming up for item 9.1, and I wanted to make sure with council members if it's okay if we move that up a little further, as I believe we do have some people in the gallery to participate in that, and so or participate or to hear what is happening with that encampment strategy. So is that, I don't see any issue with that, so we will move that up, and Mr. Clerk to in the place of, so that one will be moved out to 9.1. Just put that right after 4, okay? Next, we have the adoption of the agenda from Acting Mayor Parker. Be it resolved, the agenda of the regular meeting of City Council on May 16th, 2023 be adopted as presented. And City Clerk, are there any?
Other than the one amendment to move number 9 to after 4.
Right? That?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. And it is moved by Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meeting of City Council be approved and the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. Special City Council meeting on May the 1st, 2023, and City Council meeting on May the 2nd. And further be resolved, the City Council received for information the following reports: status of directed resolutions for May 16th, 2023, and further be resolved, the City Council approve the recommendations contained within the following Standing Policy Committee reports. First being 4.3.1, request to support grant application by Mid-City Mayor's Caucus. Be it resolved that City Council endorse the Alberta Community Partnership Grant application by the Alberta Mid-Sized City Mayor's Caucus, MCMC, to fund the 4 phases of the Unlocking the Full Potential of the Alberta's Mid-Sized Cities Initiative. And further be resolved, if the application is successful, Council approve in-kind support up to 30 hours for administration to provide data and participate in workshops, interviews, and sessions associated with this initiative. 4.3.2, status of Historic Places Advisory Committee. Terms of reference amendments, be it resolved that City Council reject the recommendation of administration to approve the amendments as provided in attachment 2 and direct administration to prepare a bylaw to formalize Historic Places Advisory Committee as a committee of council. And 4.3.3, annual report, transportation services. Be it resolved that City Council receive for information the 2022 transportation annual report. Further be resolved that City Council provide first reading to the following bylaw. Bylaw 6401, Land Use Amendment, re 2910 16th Avenue North, and further be resolved the City Council direct administration to hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 13th at 3 p.m. for the following bylaw. Bylaw 6401, Land Use Bylaw Amendment, re 2910 16th Avenue North. And I do have some questions, Councillor Crowson.
Not so much a question, Mayor Higgin, as a request to move 4.3.2 to either 8.1.2 or 8.1.3 and put it on the agenda, please.
Absolutely, we will do that. 8.13. And Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Just a request with regards to the item on, the first item on status of directed resolutions. Mr. Elliott, I believe this is yours. When can we expect a report back on that?
Through the chair to Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Sorry, that was on the tourism one, was that? In June, I'll be coming back to Economic SPC for an update on where we're at on both the LLA and the tourism discussions.
Perfect, thank you very much.
All right, with that, send that over to Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope.
Good. No more additions, deletions, changes?
So, with that,
Call a question.
question's been called. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move right along here now to encampment strategy from Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope. And we do have that in the agenda. I'm sure everybody's had the opportunity to have a look through that. 9.1, be it resolved the City Council adopt the encampment strategy as outlined in the agenda item. Now, is that, there is a, I thought there was going to present still on that. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd like to take the opportunity to turn the time over to Ms. Kleisinger if there's anything, or her and her team, if there's any updates or any highlights on this particular strategy, if there's anything you'd like to share.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'm very pleased to present you the City of Lethbridge's encampment strategy today. This strategy has been developed in partnership between the City of Lethbridge administration and Lethbridge Police Services, building off a significant allocation of resources made by City Council on April 18th. And we talk about the City of Lethbridge. This is a cross-corporate initiative that brought in over a dozen departments to discuss the ins and outs of this fairly complex matter. The strategy considers learnings from previous years, engagement with key partners, some of which are here today in the audience, research and approaches from other municipalities, and recognizes the unique context and needs of those in Lethbridge. The strategy's strategic goals are that parks and open spaces within the community are enjoyable for everyone, that the vulnerable people are connected to wellness, housing, and social supports, that encampments do not become entrenched, that our residents are informed on how to report encampments identified within the community, and that council and the community remain informed. One of the biggest keys of this response is that it is adequately resourced and a year-round response, allowing us in slower months over the winter to debrief on what worked and what didn't work over the summer months and make strategic improvements going forward. The resources supported through Council's prior funding includes 3 FTEs, including 2 dedicated encampment response positions and a housing specialist, which is currently posted. Funding for LPS resources, a dedicated encampment outreach team, and additional funding for things that pop up as needed. The core of this program or this strategy is a dedicated encampment outreach service team, which would be critical in prioritizing the needs of those living in the encampments prior to any clearing, and providing opportunities to connect them to services with, again, a focus on shelter, housing, and well-being. A risk assessment tool will triage and deploy the most appropriate resources given the situation, and we'll integrate clear and consistent reporting to council and the community that uses data to identify trends and make informed decisions on our resource deployment and to evaluate our processes, again, making the most informed decisions. Pulling these resources and the triage approach together is a key component of what we are calling level of service. And these are the expectations that council and the community can expect in terms of our timelines for responding to encampments. And those are outlined within the strategy. Overall, we are very aware that homelessness is a complex social issue and that one strategy will create the solutions that we are looking for across our community. But this is one important piece of the puzzle, and we're excited to get working with our partners, including Lethbridge Housing Authority, Blood Tribe Department of Health, and the Downtown BRZ's Clean Sweep program to deliver this strategy. And with that, I'll open it up if there's any questions.
Thank you very much for this. It's quite exciting to know that, as you mentioned earlier, that you have over a dozen community partners that are involved in this strategy. As we know that it's very complex, and it's important that we have as many on board as we possibly can to be able to help, because I know we're not all experts in that field, and then we see this happening throughout the world, and especially here in Lethbridge and in Canada for that matter. So it's important to try to bring as many people in as we possibly can. I do have questions. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. Thank you, Mr. Malcolm, and everyone involved in bringing this forward and putting it together, this strategy. It does talk about resourcing and levels of service in the strategy, but I just want to be clear. The funding has already been in place for this. This is just the strategy that is going forward, utilizing that funding. The request is not for an extra $750,000 today. The funding is in place, correct?
That is correct. Funding was a decision of council on April 18th of this year, and once the funding allocation was made, we were able to then go back, build the program, and identify a level of service that we feel can be delivered with those resources.
Thank you.
Excellent. Do you have any further questions? Councillor Schmidt-Rempel?
Thank you very much. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager designate. So as we just outlined on April 18th, the $75,000 was approved for this. We do have one job that's already been posted, and then there is a continued annual funding of $500,000 per year annually going forward on this. Can you tell me, based on, because we've got significantly increased funding from last year, how is this plan different from last year's plan?
I think first, the big difference is last year's plan and funding came in late July or August. So after a lot of the encampment, the biggest encampment we saw had already become entrenched. So we see this as being more proactive in that we are now getting the plan in place in the middle of May. Many of these aspects are already underway. So that would be the biggest component. The other component is that the previous funding was one-time funding and ended at the end of December of 2023. This ongoing funding will allow us to continually work on this, taking the slower season, if you will, over the winter months to focus on improving and hitting the next year with even a better approach. So I think those are the two biggest components that I would point out.
So we should see increased and better responses than this year than we would in previous years.
Absolutely.
This next question I have, help me understand, and perhaps members of the community understand as well. You talked about risk assessment, a risk assessment tool. Can you outline for me what that risk assessment tool looks like?
The risk assessment tool is still being developed, but what it will be is it will contemplate all the different aspects that we need to consider when we are initially showing up to an encampment site. So we'll identify things like location, if it's in the river valley and adjacent to potential fire risk. It'll identify if there are any visual weapons, how many people are there, how many structures are there biohazards. Those are the different types of things that will be evaluated, which would then trigger the type of response that is required. Again, so that we're not deploying Lethbridge Police resources to a site that is potentially just simply a mess or someone who can be connected with outreach.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. I'm very happy to hear about the housing specialist, but I think when we talk about a housing specialist, using that term, the public is going to have a different idea of it than I think we have as a city. So can you explain the role of the housing specialist and what they are actually going to do and how that is not perhaps what people are expecting? And what does success look like in the role of housing specialist in Lethbridge?
That position is now posted, and you can see that on the city's website, is posted as a housing solutions coordinator. So the term did change just as we were working through things with our people and culture department. But the biggest thing for us is that that position would be looking at internal processes and barriers that the city of Lethbridge has in place, whether that is land use regulations, development processes, understanding how we can use our capital social housing program to leverage other dollars from other orders of government, effectively helping individuals, organizations who don't typically build housing projects get their projects with a shovel in the ground. So we are not wanting to be the housing operations expert. We will leverage that relationship with Lethbridge Housing Authority and other partner organizations in the community. This is a position that will look at making improvements within the city of Lethbridge. We have upcoming opportunities, which will be presented at SPC on Thursday, around funding that's coming through the CMHC, and having somebody in place to really tackle what is needed to access those dollars is something that we would see this position. In terms of what is success, obviously removing some of those barriers, but the ultimate success is that we're seeing capacity building in our supportive transitional emergency shelter and affordable housing supply in our community, so that those that are currently living in encampments have other opportunities.
Very much for that answer. I see that you have a communication plan with this because communicating with the public is essential. I think we know from last year, and I think we know ongoing, one of the greatest communication difficulties is for the public to understand the role of LPC, Lethbridge Police Commission, and Lethbridge Police Service, and the city and what each can do. Is there a specific strategy for how to make sure that the public understands what each group's role is and what legally can and cannot be done? And if Mr. Malcolm or somebody else is better suited to answer that, I will take the answer from anyone the city manager directs to answer that.
So I will speak operationally on the encampment strategy plan, is that we will have regular meetings with LPS, and we'll look to them to tell us, you know, how they're going to partner with us, when we're overstepping. But operationally, I think that's the level that we'll be working at. I'll maybe look to our city manager or potentially our police chief to speak to that higher level order of relationship.
I further to Mr. Malcolm's comments, I would agree. If the chief has anything he wants to add, I can kind of see him.
Or the deputy chief, because I know he
Deputy
often
chief.
speaks on this too.
I'm going to make a couple of comments and then turn it over to Sergeant Dara, who's been involved with this from the onset and would be the subject matter expert on that. But from my perspective, Lethbridge Police Service is committed to do whatever we can to help this situation in partnership with the city, obviously, and all the other agencies that are going to be helping to deal with this situation. As far as the specific role of the police, I'm going to let Sergeant Dara, because they've done a lot of research as to what we can and we can't do, and hopefully we can be a key participant and partner to help with this situation.
You can raise the podium if you need to, because you might need to.
It's a very low podium. So I thought you were kidding.
It's magic.
So far we've done 6 cleanups in the city of Lethbridge this year. My jam in this role is to be very proactive, to build bridges with our people, with my people downtown, and those that need services, let's get them those services. That's been our goal from day one. We've seen awesome compliance so far. Some of the people that are choosing to live rough or urban camp, whatever you want to call it, are displaced and they need supports, so we're trying to get them those supports. There are also groups that don't want to be compliant with any rules, and that is a portion that we will deal with from the policing point of view, for sure. In a lawful manner, we're not looking to disrupt or cause any more distress in these people's lives. We want to do this in a respectful manner. So it's gone well so far. And us, along with, I've had the Clean Sweep program come out each time, and they have been absolutely phenomenal. So I can't say enough about them. So.
Thank you to everyone who answered the question.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, and thank you, Sergeant Dara, for that comment, because that answers my first question. The second question is in regards, and I'll direct this to the city manager and or his designates. It's in regards to the encampment response flow chart. On page 5, and I asked this question at the last council meeting, which was in regards to the timeliness of initiating a Tier 3 response. Are we still looking at 7 days to be able to initiate these responses and ensure that the encampments are cleaned up?
So for now, 7 days is our established level of service that we will be absolutely targeting. Our hope is that we'll be able to deliver something much quicker. What that 7 days is based on at this point in time is understanding that with LPS resources as being the key component to a triage or Tier 3, is that there's the need to get into a room, which we do on a weekly basis, understand who's going to be showing up, whose role is what, and also allowing that outreach service to make their initial connection before we show up with Lethbridge Police Services in partnership. So that's why 7 days was chosen. Obviously, we haven't used this triaging method yet, and so I hope to be able to report on an ongoing basis about us continually delivering above that, and then we can certainly look at moving that up.
Is this a matter of a lack of resources?
I think we have the resources. I think it's around the coordination aspect and making sure that certain aspects like the outreach service take place first. Obviously, in a situation where life safety is an immediate threat, that's a 911 situation, and LPS or EMS would respond outside of these timelines. So the 7 days allows us to follow the process that we've outlined, which is lead with outreach and then proceed forward with an LPS component and the clean component.
So you've built in some flexibility. Is that what I understand?
That's right. I think we've given ourselves a little bit of time, hopefully under promise, over deliver, and then we can move the target.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I see no further questions in the queue, so I'll move on to debate and start with Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope.
I have nothing to debate. If other members of council would like to debate it, by all means.
Right, move on to Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. I appreciate the great deal of work that has gone into this, and I know we worked really hard to get some more elements in here, the housing specialist, which has a new name now, the encampment response positions, so that we have an outreach service team. We're working with community members. I, though, will be voting against this, mostly because I still have a difficulty with encampment response. I know it's essential, but I'd like to see more effort going into housing and the long-term solutions rather than spending so much time on short-term solutions. So I will be voting against it, even though I do appreciate what it will be doing and what work has been done on it. And I thank the staff very much for the work that they have done.
All right, I see no further debate in the queue. I will give my support on this, and I just and thank you to LPS, Sergeant Derek, for commenting on the different programs and different organizations that you're working with and trying to get these individuals into the supports that they need to be able to be housed, as what Councillor Crost was saying is important to have that. And so working together as a team is the only way this is going to be successful. And I just know that when I look at the different organizations that are involved, it's something that, you know, we can't do everything ourselves. And we think we're the experts at it, and we'll get the calls on a regular basis, us here at, as counselors, like, you're not doing this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And we hear all of what we need to do, but so often a lot of people don't want to be involved in helping those. There's the complaints, but not the contribute to help with the situation. So I want to thank yourself, our administration, and all those involved in this strategy. And I'm, you know, we don't know if it's going to work. And I know that's the wrong thing to say, is we're not going to say that this is going to be the silver bullet. We're going to make sure this is going to work, because we don't know. But if we don't try something, we'll be in the same situation we have been over the past few years. And so it's something we need to try. And so you do have my support with this resolution, and I'll turn it back to Deputy Mayor Middleton-Ho.
Thank you. I too will be supporting this motion. These are incredibly complex problems because of the dynamics that are involved. None of them are easy. I've been involved in many of these types of events over the course of my career, and I can assure you these are very, very difficult. But I think the approach that our administration and the police service have taken to work collaboratively to develop a strategy is the right course of action. I think we're going to see success, and I certainly support it. If I don't have any other room for debate, anyone else want to put a nickel's worth in?
No nickels win. We've got all the money in already.
All right, then we can call the question. All those in favor?
Question has been called. All in favor? Those opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll just take a quick break here for about 10 minutes here. We'll be back by 2:20. Thank you. All right, we will continue on to the meeting, moving to an OBM for myself. I'll turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Are there any comments, questions? I didn't think so.
Would you like to read the reso?
I can certainly read the resolution. I just wanted to know if anybody had read it on their own. I've got one. I got a copy. Thanks. Second, to the City of Edmonton, Alberta, municipalities motion regulatory and programming changes to the Clean Energy Improvement Program. Whereas the Alberta Municipalities Annual Convention will be held in Edmonton from September the 27th to the 29th, 2023. Why do we have that? And the resolution session provides an opportunity for member municipalities to elevate advocacy priorities and seek collective support from other member municipalities across Alberta, as well as highlight areas of alignment with the Government of Alberta where mutual efforts and wins are desired or additional, and or specific support is required, and whereas Council is requested by the City of Edmonton to second their adopted resolution regarding regulatory and programming changes to enable the scaling up of the Clean Energy Improvement Program, CEIP, as provided in the attachment. Therefore, be it resolved, City Council second the May 10th, 2023 adopted City of Edmonton resolution as provided in the amendment.
Attachment.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Attachment.
All right. You know, I do see Mr. Laverty here in the audience, and we did bring this program on here earlier this year. And I'm going to say fortunately and unfortunately, because fortunately it was taken up very quickly. Unfortunately, I missed the boat on getting some of this for my particular residents because it was so well taken. But so, Mr. Laverty, if you don't mind, just give a highlight of a high-level explanation of this program, if you wouldn't mind. Is that okay?
Thank you, through the mayor and to council. The resolution before you is really just amending some of the language around where you can get borrowing from. It's also adjusting the amount of money that you can actually borrow through the program. There's also Edmonton runs a non-residential component as well, which we don't, but they're trying to include multi-residential, which is not well covered at this point in this. Really, like I said, it's really just a support of changing parameters, and we can choose to use them or not use them.
So if I could add, just what are some of the CIP things that have passed that people have done in our community with this grant funding? Like what have they been able to do with their homes, their residences?
Well, again, we've had quite a response this year. We had 40 applications, which pretty much closed our program for this year. We have another 47 on a waiting list as well. So what they're doing is a lot of people are looking at windows and doors for energy efficiency. Some are looking at attic insulation, and definitely some solar panel installations as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Crowson?
Mr. Laverty, when I'm reading through this and they're talking about the upgrades and stuff, my brain is going to the fact that this could really be used beautifully for historic buildings because they often need renovations, and this would be another way to put money towards it. Are we seeing any of that in the program? Is the program designed for that in any way, or is that just something that would be up to each residential owner?
Through the mayor and to Councillor Crowson, it's a residential program only in Lethbridge right now.
But we have residential historic homes.
Residential, we haven't seen any applications at this point.
Okay, because if I was a owner of a historic building, I would see this, because we are actually seeing, and I know this is more debate, but we are seeing some historic buildings become LEED standard with retrofit. And there has been some amazing work being done on them because they're built so well. So I'm very curious to see if anybody with a historic building takes this up, because I see this as a real advantage, but something we'll be working on. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Any other questions? Good. Thank you, Mr. Laverty. Debate?
I will just start by saying that we're seconded a motion from the City of Edmonton at the upcoming, as we see here, Alberta Municipalities Convention, so I just ask for council support.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Sarsfield.
And now we'll move to a resolution, a business motion from Acting Mayor Parker, Indoor Recreational Opportunities 6.2. Whereas the Recreation and Culture Master Plan 2021 outlines the community's need for more multi-purpose indoor recreational spaces, and whereas the Recreation and Culture Indoors Court multi-purpose space audit and analysis 2022 identified that the emergence of pickleball has created additional demand for daytime gymnasium space, which is limited in Lethbridge, and whereas the State of Recreation and Culture Research Report 2021 concluded that gymnasium usage is at a full capacity during prime hours, and whereas the population of Lethbridge is to surpass 150,000 residents by 2050, population employment forecasting model, and whereas the north, south, and main pavilions at Exhibition Park will no longer be operational with the opening of the new building, and whereas the pavilions have been previously utilized for recreational activities and are owned by the City of Lethbridge, and whereas there will be a substantial cost for the buildings to be torn down. Therefore, be it resolved that City Council direct administration to explore the feasibility of repurposing the pavilions for recreational multi-purpose opportunities, report back to City Council by the end of Q4 2023. And further be resolved, the City Council provide up to $50,000 of funding for this feasibility study funded from Recreation and Culture operating funding. Acting Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, I just would ask, maybe since it is my resolution, and I want to gather some more information through some other sources right now, and I would just ask if this be tabled for 2 weeks so we could gather some more information. So I just ask for a postponement at this time for 2 weeks.
Postponement? All right. And anyone against a postponement? Yeah. Question, go ahead.
Just to Mr. Sarsfield, as Councillor Parker is looking for more information, is the postponement the best, or should it just be referred, or what is? Because I know sometimes with postponement you can't do anything additional. I just want to make sure it doesn't limit Councillor Parker's ability to get more information.
So the two ways you could do with it, you could say a specific date, and if you say a specific date, it comes back at that particular time. If you're waiting for specific information, you may want to say what that information might be. So depending on when that does arrive, then that's when it gets dealt with by council. Either way is applicable.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no further questions, so to close debate, or I guess
I called the question on just to ask for postponement this time.
Postponement. Question been called. All in favor? All right. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Move on to 8.1.1 from Councillor Croson, Chair of Civic Works Standing Policy Committee, Harmonization of School and Playground Zones. Be resolved, the City Council approve the implementation of harmonized school and playground zones as follows. Change existing school zones to playground zones. Change the effective time of playground zones to 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, with both of the above changes be effective in Q3 of 2023. Councillor Croson, to open for questions.
Absolutely.
And is there any questions on this? I do have a question. I do see 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. Now, a lot of times in other communities put in dawn till dusk. Is there a reason why it came up with the 7:30 till 9 p.m. in the wintertime when it's 4 o'clock and it's dark out? Why at 9 p.m.?
One of the reasons, and Mr. Ali is here to answer anything I get incorrect, but one of the reasons is for the consistency, and that's one of the reasons we're looking at harmonization. The other difficulty is right now it is an hour after dusk, and a lot of people, if you ask them when dusk is, will give you a different time. And so that is the difficulty when you're looking at dusk. It varies, of course, and we all have a different idea of when the sun has actually gone down. And so this gives everybody an understanding of it is this specific time. And we are trying to encourage people to do more winter sports, both in the playground and around the community. So hopefully eventually, 9 o'clock, and I think it should be 9:15, which is when our curfew kicks in, but I can see why 9 o'clock is there.
And my second question is, and we've received a lot of different questions, or I know I have, regarding the safety. Is there actual data out there to prove this, that this is more safe and that there will be when other communities have implemented this, if there has been a drop in, say, for example, accidents because of it being dropped down. Was that looked into?
I'll let Mr. Ali explain a little bit more about that. One of the things we do have, though, in our package, and I think it was included in the package, is a letter from the doctors in Lethbridge who are supporting this, because one of the things you will noticeably see, a crash at 50 kilometers per hour and the survival rate of children versus a crash at 30 kilometers an hour and the survival rate of children is demonstrably better at 30 kilometers per hour. So that is one of the things that science is showing, is that slowing people down does increase the chance of children surviving. And we do also have the University of Calgary report, but Mr. Ali is much more versed on this, so I will ask him to provide more information in that respect.
Yeah, so, I mean, as we have, included in the introduction and all the background, that we are one of the probably last municipality among major municipalities who are doing this implementation. So other municipalities have done it, and City of Calgary retained University of Calgary to do a research study on their before and after implementation of harmonization, and we have included that in the package. That the number of collisions involving pedestrians within school and playground zones decreased by 33%, with a 70% decrease between the extended time between 5:30 and 9 p.m. Collision rates also were down from 0.049 to 0.011 collisions per million vehicle kilometer. And they also undertook a public opinion survey, and they found that 80% of the respondents found it easier to remember zone times with single zone type. That is consistent throughout the year. So I also pulled up some data from our collisions. So unfortunately, our data is still not so, available for doing a detailed analysis for schools. That will be a major project to do that for each school. So I pulled up data throughout the city, and we found that about quarter of the collisions occur due to unsafe speeds, and quarter of collisions involving major injuries occur because of unsafe speeds. So there is one criteria of classifying collisions, and that's one is unsafe speed. And when we relate major injury collision types with unsafe speed, we found that almost quarter of it. And also, this is the latest data from 2016 to 2021. Even previous data, which we have included in our transportation safety plan on page number 16, has similar numbers, like almost a quarter. So, and there is evidence worldwide that, lowering speeds, especially in the areas where you find vulnerable road users such as school kids, is a very good idea for improving road safety.
Thank you. I know it was a rhetorical question, and I know it was in our package, but it's important that the community, those that are watching, do have that. So thank you for re-emphasizing what is written down there. Appreciate that. Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, because I think that the statements in the report, although I support the harmonization and the reduction of speeds, I think some of the language in the report is misleading. What data suggests that the status quo, quote, runs the risk of higher potential of collisions and being inconsistent with other municipalities in Alberta? I would suggest that there's no data that we have that suggests specifically for Lethbridge to support that our current model is unsafe.
So we don't know. We cannot say yes or no because we haven't done that detailed analysis.
Correct. But it's misleading in the report, because you're utilizing data from another community, and you're relying on that to suggest that greater speeds and in playground zones and or in school zones result in more collisions and therefore injuries. But we don't have the data to suggest that one way or the other in Lethbridge.
No, we haven't done that study, but anecdotally, based on evidence from other locations.
We're being asked to make a change here that's not based on anecdotal information. We're being asked to make a change here based on evidence.
Yes, evidence elsewhere, not here. We haven't done that study. That's the answer. Yeah.
All right, so we're clear then. Thank you.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Ali, since we have you up here, can you outline for me some of the questions in the surveys asked about what type of signage or signaling will be planned for those areas? So could you sort of outline for us what type of signage and signaling is being planned? Particularly, a lot of the comments were around that we're spending $80,000 on this. That seemed like a high price tag. So maybe you can outline for us what
So,
signage and signaling will
so
look like.
we have existing school zones, and we have playground zones, existing playground zones. So all the school zone signs have to be changed to playground zone with the new timing. And in many of our playground zones are actually grandfathered signs. They are like smaller signs, not comply to the current standards. So we will change them as well. So the total cost of the project is actually $65,000. Before survey, that was our original estimate of $80,000. Then when we actually got to details, it's $65,000. So we will be changing all the signs to comply with the current regulations and standards within Canada and Alberta. And there would be a comprehensive public education plan as well. Caitlin, our colleague, might speak to that.
Is there any special or specific signaling? There was some asking for flashing lights and some asking for the overhead crosswalk light kind of ideas. Is any of that going to be implemented at all?
So that's a different subject. So we have changed several school crossings now to what we call as rectangular rapid flashing beacons. I would say that by end of this year, most of our elementary and middle schools, which fall on collector roads or roads with higher traffic volumes, will have enhanced crosswalks with rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And in schools which are on local roads or low volume roads, we have again enhanced crosswalks with zebra crossings and signs. So we are making a lot of changes internally, and they will occur irrespective of this project.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to City Manager or Designate. I'm curious about the implementation process. The bylaw has to be changed, I'm guessing. What is the timeline of that coming back? And we didn't see any of the proposed changes, or at least.
So as we have outlined here, the first thing is to update a very small minor update to traffic bylaw, which we can do within a month. And then we will in parallel start fabrication of signs, and we will be ready for installation end of June when the schools close. And we have July and August for installation, and we estimated that is sufficient time for us to start the actual implementation of the new program by first few days of the school year. And there would also be a comprehensive education and public information program as well along with it.
And thank you for that. So is the change to the bylaw, is that simply the time?
Yeah, a few sentences will be changed there because the provincial statute allows municipalities to set up school and playground zones, and based on that we already have playground and school zones included in our bylaw, and that has to change. It's not a major change. So it will come back to City Council, of course, soon, if it is approved today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Midland Hope.
Thank you. This is more to the city manager, I guess. So as a part of this study or refitting of the school signs and so forth, could we also include an assessment of the existing playground zones and the school zones? And I'm going to give you two examples. One is St. Patrick's Elementary School on the west side. On Grand River Boulevard, as an example, the signage for the school zone is inappropriate. It comes in halfway through the school and then extends beyond the school about a half a block down the roadway. So the signage is in the wrong place in both occasions. So I would encourage you to, if you're going to be conducting a study, have a very careful look at some of these locations. There's also another one on Canyon Parkway that I pass just about every day. It's a yellow sign. I don't know what the sign is. I can't find it in the signage from the province of Alberta, and there's no end to it. It's near a playground zone, but it doesn't indicate that this is a playground zone, and therefore we need to reduce our speeds, because I can assure you, drivers do not, and there is no end to it. So I would encourage you to have a look at the school zones and the playground zones that we do have and ensure that they are properly signed.
Yeah, so two parts to your question, if I can answer. So the first part is, yes, we are going to do a comprehensive review of all existing playground zones. Like we know there are some school zones and playground zones adjacent to each other and have issues. There are issues with signs. They're all like been existing for a while. So we are taking this opportunity to do a comprehensive review and redesign of all the playground school zones.
Thank you. And is that included in the 65,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the other question was about playground areas. So Alberta provincial guidelines have two types of playground areas or zones. So playground zones, there is a mandatory 30-kilometer speed limit. Playground areas are just warning that children might be playing or somebody might be playing. You just be careful. It's not a speed limit. That's why you don't have an end to it. So that's confusing, and we are actually discouraging any new installation of playground areas. And we will review as part of this whether to keep them or take them out.
Mr. Sanchez, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, just to, again, remind council, during the budget operations deliberations, we had a position dedicated to the safety study and safety review, and I know Mr. Jewell and Mr. Ali will be working on that point or in all the safety improvements that have to be done. Something else that Ahmed mentioned before is that we have some signs that have been grandfathered, and as part of the life cycle as they come for replacement, unless they are not really a safety risk that we need to replace immediately, we try to do that with the allocated budget that we have, and they will be working on those details, and definitely there is room for improvement, absolutely, and we're going to be working on those, and I know Ahmed has his team now working in terms of what is next and how they're going to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Dodick?
Again, excuse my voice. Mr. Ali, I noticed that you have support for this from the Lethbridge School Division, which is formerly a public school division, Holy Spirit Catholic School Division, as well as the Lethbridge Police Service. Is that correct?
Yes.
Also, I see, although I haven't checked out this group, Southwest Alberta Road Safety Society, who apparently has members from Alberta Health Services, Population Health Promotion Program, AMA, School Safety, Brain Injury, and various other organizations who are also supporting this as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Plus the trauma center from Chinook Regional Hospital.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
All right, so no further questions, so I'll open it up to debate. Councillor Crowson, to open.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. So this is being recommended for safety reasons and to reduce confusion. There has been evidence in other communities, not necessarily here because we haven't studied it, that it can reduce accidents and can make it safer for both drivers and pedestrians, in this case primarily children. The committee or the staff did go out. They got over 1,000 respondents. There were diverse opinions and suggestions for changing this. Some of the major concerns that this is a money grab. I asked that question to Mr. Ali at the Civic Works, and he said this is being proposed for safety reasons. That is under the Transportation Safety Plan, and it is being brought forward for that. And you can see the support for this, as we said, from the trauma groups and from others, that this is something being done for the safety of children. The other concern was about traffic congestion. Again, we asked Mr. Ali about this, and it will add, on average, about 4 seconds to your commute. So that should, I know, it should not be the largest concern, having it on the weekend as well. We do know other communities are moving in this direction. Coaldale, most recent, and other communities have done it. It is for a minimal cost, and it could be much safer for our community in the end. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to support this.
Thank you. I will be supporting this, and if it's one accident you prevent because of it, I think there's a cost that shouldn't even be looked at. So I appreciate it coming forward. I know it's for safety, number one reason, and I couldn't agree more as hearing some of the data. I know it wasn't Lethbridge data, but within other communities, it does show that it's much safer to have that zone harmonized. So thank you for that, and I will be supporting. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much for this. I'm about to give LPS a whole lot more money by supporting this motion. I do like that we do have a set time of 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., so that's not open to interpretation. And I do thank the respondent to the surveys who made me look up the different types of twilight. I found it interesting that there was a difference between civic and nautical twilight. You guys can Google that yourselves. In my mind, though, this is not only for the safety of children, it's also simply a part of making our city safe and accessible for all ages. All ages use those zones, those playground zones that we talk about, but also those school zones that have playgrounds in them. I see a lot of grandparents in our area taking kids during the summertime over to the playground at the school that's close to me. So this just makes it safe for both pedestrians and motorists, so I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, and I turn the time over to Councillor Crowson.
I will call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next, I have a resolution from Councillor Crowson, Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater 2022 Annual Report 8.1.2. Be it resolved that I think we got a little bit. All right, we'll try that again.
We have a real resolution
Resolved
behind
that
it.
City Council receive for information the Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater 2022 Annual Report. Councillor Crowson.
You may wonder why this has been brought before you, because we do get a lot of reports from different committees at Civic Works. We get to learn about what they've done, what they are planning to do, and most of those go on the consent agenda. This is being brought forward. It was at the suggestion of Councillor Parker, and it's about page 8 of the annual report, when they actually provide the 2022 total monthly residential water and wastewater charges. And you will see that in Lethbridge in 2023, ours is $61.31 on average per month. But if you look at a place like Calgary, it's $102.19 per month, which is $40 more than ours. And in some cases, they go up to more than $50 more than ours. So we want to bring this forward. Based on these amounts, you're saving $480 more per year in Lethbridge than Calgary, and you can do the stats compared to other places. So we, of course, always hear how highly taxed we are, how expensive this is. We want to bring this forward because it is a good news story. When it comes to the water and wastewater department, you are getting a deal in Lethbridge. And this is something that we should be aware of and be proud of for what this department is doing. So we brought it forward as off the consent agenda for that reason.
Thank you. Has that your question's been called?
It is for information, but it is awesome
Right.
information, so question has been called.
Question been called. All in favor? All right. Thank you. Next, I have a resolution, status of Historic Places Advisory Committee. This is the one that was previously 4.3.2, was brought out to 8.1.3. Be resolved, the City Council accepts, so there's a difference to add into, accept the recommendation of administration to, number 1, approve the amendments as provided in attachment 2, and number 2, direct administration to prepare a bylaw to formalize Historic Places Advisory Committee as a committee of council. And turn the time over to questions, which I don't see any questions. So to debate, Councillor Crowson.
I'll sort of set this up about why I asked it to come off consent agenda. We do have Mr. Kilgore here, who is the city's liaison with this committee, if you want more detailed information. This position of the Indigenous representative on this position was originally set up in response to the city's Reconciliation Implementation Plan, which was itself a response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action at the municipal level. This position, as presented by HPAC, is critical to moving ahead with the newly revised Heritage Management Plan. And I focus on that position because this was one of the conversations that we had when this came forward at the at the Standing Policy Committee. And one of the concerns was that this position is open. We have recently had an application submitted for the role. It is in process. The person still needs to be interviewed and things need to go ahead. But we are hoping that we can get this position filled. And there were concerns about looking specifically for an Indigenous person rather than somebody with skill-based. But when you look back at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, this is something we committed to do as a city, is to ensure that there is an Indigenous representative on historic places. And we also know that having somebody there is absolutely critical to the recently passed and revised Heritage Management Plan. So if we don't move ahead with these recommendations from administration, we are going to be putting one of our own plans in jeopardy. We won't be able to move ahead accurately on it. And we will be going against one of the calls to action that we have been working on. So I just wanted to be more clear about why administration brought this forward and some of the background behind it. And I am very hopeful that we will move ahead on this. This is a committee that does incredible work. It is a small group. There's only 5 members of the public who sit on this committee. Each has a very practical role. Trust me, even as somebody who does history, every day, when you're looking at history, one of the things we need to have is the multiple perspectives around the table. Because even though you may have the facts and information, we all have blinders when it comes to the stories we have been told about history. And it's only when you have people there who have different backgrounds, different perspective, that you actually get to see a fuller historic information come forward and a fuller story. And I believe this recommendation that's being brought forward is quite essential to the work of this committee. I know if you have any more detailed questions, Mr. Kilgore is here.
And I'm going to, as chair, allow myself to ask a question now. The question I would have, and as you were speaking, was this first came on to the consent agenda, which was pulled off, and it was defeated at committee level. Can I find out what some of those questions? I didn't have a chance to review that. Oh, this is going to be upcoming? Okay, I will hop out and maybe this will be answered. I see Councillor Dodick in debate. Thank you.
If it doesn't answer your questions as to why it was defeated at SPC, then of course you can ask more questions. I will not be supporting this resolution for the same reasons I didn't at the SPC, and another council member, and I voted against it, and that's why initially it was to reject it, because it was a tie vote. And the argument there was not that it was not important to have an Indigenous person with expertise on this particular committee. Initially, the way the committee worked before, it was simply an Indigenous person. Now it's an Indigenous person with expertise. At that time, and I'm glad at the committee hearing, we were told that it had been more than a year that anyone had applied for this particular position. I'm glad to hear that that's in the work. But the main gist of my argument was that this is a 5-member committee, and 4 of the 5 memberships requires the only certain types of qualifications. They're not ethnic-based. So, for example, an architect with expertise, you're not limiting it to an architecture that's from a specific ethnic group. And so I suggested at that time to the people that were here, saying, why can we not amend it or put in the bylaw that says the same thing as it says now, and, except you just say a person with expertise. So you leave out the Indigenous as modifying the person, and at the end saying with the preference given to an Indigenous person. Because the problem that's happening, and we're seeing this with many things with the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations, it is constantly being thrown at us that this is what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and its recommendation, we're changing everything to accommodate a very specific ethnic group, and we could still do that with saying, with preference for. Because there's a lot of times we're asking for Indigenous folks to apply for committees, we're just not getting those applicants. But I think it behooves us as a council not to necessarily say it has to be an Indigenous person, but it could be preference given to an Indigenous person. But if an Indigenous person doesn't apply, at least someone with expertise. So you can have someone from Indigenous Studies at the university who may not be Indigenous, who actually has the expertise that could sit on this committee. So basically, in short, it is only that position of 5 that requires it to be ethnicity-based, and we can still deal with the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations by saying, but we will give preference to an Indigenous person. So As the facts are now, we have an applicant. Hopefully that applicant meets the criteria required and gets appointed and is an Indigenous person and has been given preference. Problem solved. But otherwise, we're locking ourselves into in the future by saying it has to be that, whereas the other 4 members, it's experience-based only. This one is experience plus ethnicity-based. I don't think the Truth and Reconciliation Committee meant to go, or maybe they did, but it shouldn't go as far as we've been letting things go on so many things. So that was at least my argument at the SPC and why I didn't vote for it. So it was just saying, put it in as a preference, not a mandatory requirement.
Thank you, and I'm sure it wasn't an argument, it could have been a comment, a suggestion.
They had suggested that the bylaw be amended, and the universal response was, no, that's not recommended to amend it, that this is what they want. Accordingly, I'm not even putting a proposed amendment, I'm just voting against this.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
I'm in for debate, Your Worship, is that what
Yeah, we're on debate.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Hagan, and thank you, Councillor Dodic, for a bit of the explanation at the committee. I appreciate that. I will be supporting this. There are other amendments, not just around the one position that we've discussed. The committee did the work to amend their terms of reference. They're the ones who operate by it. They're the ones that do the work. I was in committee with Councillor Dodic to at least get the expertise on the committee. But when I asked that question of the committee, they were fairly unanimous in saying that that's not what they want, because this isn't a committee any councillors sit on. It's really the work of the committee and the wishes of the committee that I'm honoring with this one. So I will be supporting it as amended. If not, if this doesn't pass, they'll have to go back and reword the entire TOR and come back again. I'd rather they just get on with it. So I will be support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Deputy Mayor Middleton Ho.
Thank you. I'm amusing. We have talked about reducing the number of SPCs and trying to make a more fulsome number of SPCs that have additional responsibilities, and yet as I read through this, it occurs to me that we're asking this to become a committee of council. So we're adding another committee to council. I'm wondering if that needs to be done or whether it could be looked at as part of the collapsing of multiple committees into one of the larger committees.
May I respond to that? Because I think
As long as it wasn't too confusing.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I think that what you're having is two different conversations. The SPCs are very much the committees we sit on. A committee of council is only that they report to council, not that they are a committee that we have to be on. The difference is if it's an administrative committee, which we're not recommending in this case, they don't need a bylaw. If it's a committee of council, and this has operated as essentially a committee of council since 2007, it's only because when Mr. Lowen came on board, he read the MGA and said we had to have a bylaw for every committee of council. But it has been, I know, we're going to blame Mr. Lowen, but it has been operating as a committee of council for 16 years. It has been reporting to council throughout that time, and it originally only had 3 members. The 2 members, which was the person with the archaeology background and an Indigenous member, came out in response to the Truth and Reconciliation. So it has never really changed its purpose. It has expanded what it does, though.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it, and I appreciate my colleagues' very fulsome discussion in regard to competency versus compellability. And I support what Councillor Dodic was saying in regards to let's hire the best people for the job wherever possible. And if we can amend the language to encourage specific groups with specific skill sets to engage in the process, then I'm certainly in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. I will be supporting this resolution. Simply put, it supports our Heritage Master Plan, it supports our Truth and Reconciliation work, and this is what the Historic Places Advisory Committee is stating as their recommendation. I support that and the work that they've done. Thank you.
All right, with that, I see no further debate. Closed debate.
I appreciate where councillors Middleton Hope and Dodrick are coming from, and really it's kind of like semantics. But one of the reasons that this is an Indigenous person is to give it the credibility within the community. When you're looking at an elder or somebody who's worked in there, they have the qualifications of essentially a PhD. This is not something that's easily come by, but the one thing they have that somebody with another background doesn't have are the connections, the family connections, the ability to speak and work with the community in a way. And if it is not an Indigenous person, I believe we will actually be putting this committee in a position where they're not getting the most fulsome conversations with the community that we can. And so I will ask my colleagues to support this. I think we're very close on this issue, and we'll probably have this conversation again if this moves forward when the bylaw comes forward. But I believe, as others have said, this is what Historic Places Advisory Committee is recommending. They have a very definite reason for why they're recommending this, and I hope my colleagues will support the committee in their work and move forward on this. So I'll call the question.
All right, and the question has been called, and now we're going to do a vote by roll call here. Good.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
In favor.
Councillor Croson?
In favor.
Councillor Dodick?
Opposed?
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel?
In favor.
Mayor Parker?
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Councillor Campbell?
In favor.
Vote is 4-4. The motion is defeated.
So what is the move ahead on this? Does it then go back to them? Because otherwise, they're going to have no terms of reference. That's
Right now, the resolution doesn't say anything. It would be them to come forward again, because it doesn't say if it's defeated, next step. So oh, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
Okay.
I would never say that the mayor was wrong, but where we're at is the motion is defeated, and until direction is given by council, the current terms of reference apply.
which is an Indigenous person. Thank you.
All right. All right, from Councillor Campbell, I have a resolution, Targeted Redevelopment Incentive Program, TRIP 2023 Municipal Tax Cancellations. Be resolved, the City Council approve the TRIP Program 2023 Municipal Tax Cancellations totaling $121,242.61 as per the following properties: 608 Fifth Avenue South in the amount of $69,065.20, 316 Fifth Street South in the amount of $28,106.99, 1244 3rd Avenue South in the amount of $24,070.42. Open up to questions, and I do have one. I see Mr. Laverty here, because I know what the calls are and have been and will come in is, why are you canceling people's taxes? But can you please explain what the TRIP program is in just a couple sentences, if you don't mind, through Mr. City Manager? Through Mr. City Manager to Mr. Laverty, if that's fine. I just had a question about that. That's all
My
right?
apologies, yes.
No, okay. Thank you, Mr. Laverty. Or, I'm sorry, or another designate, Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you. There's a illness in the Opportunity Lethbridge team, so I've been tagged in to put my old hat back on. And
okay.
So with the Targeted Redevelopment Incentive Program is a tax incentive for the difference when a project in our urban core undertakes a significant redevelopment. And so the taxes that they pay pre-development are continued forward for a period of time, and as the increased amount that's due to the increase of assessment, that is canceled. So these are the increased amounts that you're seeing here, and those properties would continue to pay the same amount of taxes, or they would pay taxes based on the assessment pre-construction. So they continue to pay taxes today. It's just they're getting a rebate or an incentive on the increased value. Once that incentive period is over, they will pay the full value based on full assessment.
There's higher taxes than previous, because of course going through this in the redevelopment. So thank you for that. So it's a TRIP program that was, I just know that these questions come in. I see that you're canceling some taxation. It's actually just part of a program that's previously approved. Thank you. Councillor Campbell, I don't see any further questions, so I guess for debate.
Sure. No, the TRIP program nicely explained there. A great incentive for the downtown core especially. And we have currently 3 previously approved projects that are here for council tax cancellation. And because it is a council policy, and we are required to be brought before council to complete this tax cancellation process in this year. So that is what we're doing here. It's to rubber stamp basically the tax cancellations for this year.
All right, so with that, we open and close. I
That's
guess
it.
you close. All right.
Call for the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And now from our closed meeting resolutions here from Councillor Crowson, advice from officials 14.1, be it resolved that City Council direct that the closed meeting discussions with respect to the advice from officials remain confidential pursuant to Section 24, advice from officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Councillor Crowson?
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. And from Councillor Carlson, because he was... Councillor Carlson, closed meeting land sale request for extension 14.2. Be it resolved that Council approve the 3-month extension for the closing date of 6/24 Devonia Road and 808 Devonia Circle West to Pure West Developments Limited with the following extension terms: 624 Devonia Road West, closing date June 24th, 2023. Additional deposit of $1,818.88 non-refundable. An additional deposit will contribute to the cash to close. And 808 Devonia Circle West, closing date June 24th, 2023. Additional deposit $1,948.70 non-refundable. And additional deposit will attribute to the cash to close. Further be resolved that City Council direct the closed meeting reports, documents, and discussion with respect to the advice from officials remain confidential pursuant to Sections 23 Local Public Body Confidences and 24 Advice from Officials of the Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act. Councillor Dodick.
Yes, I'd like to declare a conflict of the, on this resolution. I will excuse myself from the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Dodick. All right. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Councillor Carlson. I see no questions, so for debate, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. Unless there's any other questions from my colleagues, it is something we have done in the past, and I'd call for the vote.
Question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That so carries. If you can go, he's been gone for a long time.
He ran out to make coffee.
All right, we do have a resolution from Councillor Carlson, closed meeting land sale 14.3. Be resolved the City Council approve the land sale of 135 Cooley Springs Way South to Henry Iwasa with the following sales terms. Purchase price of $11,850 and closing date June 14th, 2023. Further be resolved that City Council direct the closed meeting reports, documents, and discussion with respect to the advice from officials remain confidential pursuant to Sections 23 Local Public Body Confidences and 24 Advice from Officials of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This piece of property is surplus to the city's use. It's unused at this time, and I think consolidating this with the parcel next door will add to the enhancement of the area, so I'd call for the vote.
Question's been called. All in favor? All right. All in favor? That so passes. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.